is going to be, yeah, let's start recording. I cannot wait to hear from Naomi. She's going to talk about communicate to connect at work. Okay, I'm going to read your bio. So the title of this one is Communicate to Connect at Work, Turn Tension into Understanding, and Create Stronger, More Aligned Professional Relationships. Naomi Simpson is a guide and confidant for women navigating the complexities of relationships and personal growth. She combines ancient practices such as yoga, astrology, and somatic exercises into her work as a relationship and life path coach, guiding women towards meaningful and fulfilling connections. Naomi combines a background in corporate human resources with her coaching practitioner certification and her accredited professional astrologer designation. Offering practical, grounded support, she guides clients to improve communication, deepen intimacy, enhance understanding, and live in synchronicity with natural cycles to unlock their gifts and navigate challenge with awareness and honesty.
Thank you, Sunny. Listening to my intro, I'm like, ooh, speaking of communication, I need to pare that one down. Anyway, thank you everybody for being here, making time to prioritize healthy and thriving communication in all of your relationships, both professional and personal. As a relationship coach, I frequently offer detailed workshops on communication. And so this is a topic near and dear to me, and I could talk for hours, but I'm going to limit it to, just about 10 minutes. And for our brief conversation, I've decided to sort of zero in on why communication breaks down at work and what you can do differently to avoid this, focusing specifically on two fundamental flaws in how we communicate. First, making assumptions, and second, showing up on autopilot. So to get the conversation started, because I want this to be more of a conversation rather than me being a talking head, I would invite everybody to comment in the chat. What are some of the biggest communication challenges you have faced professionally? And if you don't have any professional examples, you can add personal ones in there too. So comment away, folks. Okay, being misunderstood, assuming what the other is saying, when other people assume or come with a pre-planned conversation. Yeah, that one, that's a real bee in my bonnet. Thinking I gave clear instructions and they weren't having my message heard, listening, not enough time, communicating to your audience, avoidance, assuming people's motives. Okay, great. Thank you. You can keep going if you want. At work, communication is breaking down for a variety of reasons. It can be unclear roles and expectations, unproductive conflict, lack of feedback, lack of recognition for our team members, power struggles. We've all seen those at play and maybe been part of them as well. Unclear decision-making, poor listening from team members, and then misalignment around values and goals. And fundamentally, most of our business challenges are communication challenges. And leaders can address these by building new skills, modeling effective behaviors, walking the talk, not just paying lip service to things. And underneath all of these communication breakdowns, we have usually two fundamental issues, assumptions and being on autopilot. When we make assumptions, we are approaching an interaction from a place of judgment instead of a place of curiosity. And when we operate on autopilot, we slip into habitual ways of reacting instead of dynamic ways of responding to people. And both of these behaviors lead to the challenges that we've identified together in the chat. So let's begin with assumptions. Assumptions are essentially the story we tell ourselves about somebody else's motives. So has anybody here, show of hands, has anybody here watched the Brene Brown special on Netflix? Brene Brown is a wonderful professor, I think, down in Texas, and she writes a lot about vulnerability and daring to be brave. And so anybody watch that one? So there is this really great story that she tells, and she and her husband, Steve, are swimming across a lake. And partway through the swim, she asks him a question and he doesn't respond and he keeps swimming. And so she starts to tell herself a whole story about what he's thinking. Her mind is spinning out of control. She's really, she starts just overthinking, sort of panicking, going to worst case scenarios about what this means about their marriage. And essentially, by the time they've reached the shore, she's steeling herself for imminent divorce. And tearfully, she says, what happened? Why didn't you answer me? And he looks at her and he says, I was just trying to stay alive. We're swimming across a lake. And it was just such a classic illustration of the way we can, when we make assumptions that this can completely derail our conversation. And assumptions are connected to our own communication preferences. So fundamentally, our assumptions are based on the belief that everybody communicates and thinks and experiences things the same way that we do. And this is simply not the case. So to illustrate the differences, and we sort of talked about that in our first breakout room because we were sharing, what are some of our default things when we're stressed? What are our, how do we communicate? Is it direct? Is it, are we more emotional? And I'd like everybody now in the chat to tell me, comment some of your key communication preferences. So not when you're stressed, but what do you like? So do you prefer active listening with lots of head nodding and hmms? Do you prefer in-person communication? Do you prefer texting? Are you a more formal communicator, or do you like doing abbreviations, more casual kind of connections? So if everybody can just weigh in on the chat. Okay, woo! Okay, definitely in person, active listening, collaborative, in person, direct, in person, open, honest. Okay, lots of that. I tend to have direct, clear, active, exploratory conversations. So lots of different variety. Meaningful, yes, direct, not superficial, auditory, digital. Okay, interesting. Direct, in person, because I love the feel of being with a person, getting the body language. Body language, that's a good point, Susan. Thank you. Clear, exploratory. So exploratory it tends to be a little bit less direct. It's a little bit more, not tentative. That's not the right way I would describe it, but just a little bit more open, not directed down a particular path. Same as Susan, and in person, like staying in the solution, collaborative, non-judgmental. Okay, great. I love this. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for weighing in on that. And the variety of answers that we have here show that there are as many styles of communication as there are people here. And these aren't necessarily dramatic differences, sometimes just really subtle nuances. And these subtleties are key in helping us bridge the gap when it comes to communicating with others, whether that's in our personal life or with colleagues or even with clients. And our communication preferences show up very clearly in inventory systems like the Myers-Briggs testing, the Kolbe system, which is, I am not a Kolbe expert at all, but thankfully we have a Kolbe expert here. And of course, as an astrologer, these things show up in your horoscope really clearly. And these different methodologies outline your communication styles and differences, but that doesn't absolve you from the responsibility of communicating effectively. So we can't just throw up our arms and say oh, well, this is just the way I am. And you need to sort of, you're going to just have to accept this about me. We don't want to just hope for the best, because if our message is not landing, and that could be a message with our clients, with our colleagues, in our families, it's our responsibility as leaders to adapt our communication so that our team and other people can really hear us. And that includes getting curious about other people's preferences. So in personal work, this would be our kind of 5 love languages that Dr. Gary Chapman coined. And these also apply in work scenarios. So workplace love languages refer to ways that our colleagues and team feel appreciated and valued. These includes the same 5 love languages, just in a different context. So we've got words of affirmation, which is praise and positive feedback. We've got acts of service, which is helping somebody with the work they're doing. Tangible gifts, which is bonuses, money. Also tokens of appreciation, gift cards. Quality time, one-to-one meetings, mentorship, taking somebody out to lunch, that type of thing. And physical touch, you can use physical touch in the workplace. You need to be very judicious with it. So physical touch could be like high five or shaking somebody's hand. Make sure it's appropriate and welcome. So that one, be more aware of the preference there. but recognizing what other people's and getting curious about them. And you can even ask them so that you know what their sort of work love language is and start speaking it, because that's often what's missing in connection. So this can really enhance cohesion with your clients, with other colleagues and team members. So let's now turn our attention to that autopilot, the habits and reactivity. So has anybody here had the experience of having the same argument or same conversation over and over? I like the little laugh I got there, little chuckle. So yes, I think everybody's had that, whether it's with a colleague, with your boss, with your spouse, with a family member, maybe your crotchety uncle at Thanksgiving dinner, or even with a friend. And we see this dynamic playing out all the time on social media, where we have real polarity. It's easy to be, people sort of can get really out of control behind the safety of their keyboard. And one of the reasons we get stuck in these unproductive patterns is we're approaching the problem from the same mindset that the problem was created. And this is, loosely paraphrasing Albert Einstein, this is the definition of insanity. We're not going to find a solution when we're coming from the same line of thinking. And when we communicate in this very habitual way, we're not truly present. We may be listening to respond. I'm sure nobody here does that. You're not even really listening to what the other person says. You're already preparing, your own point, your argument. And so we're not listening to hear. And that's a really fundamental flaw in communication, is listening to answer instead of listening to hear. And when we're in this kind of mindset, we may slip into familiar reactions. We start to speak in absolutes, like you always, I never. So whenever we have those kinds of words, we're really putting the other person on the defensive. We're actually eroding goodwill in communication, and where it becomes extremely unproductive. This also can lead to real misunderstanding and miscommunication. So it's easy to shift out of this pattern. When I say easy, it's simple, but not always easy to apply. And that's just to drop down and tune into the body and to tend to our nervous system. We think of communication as a cerebral mental activity, which it is, but it is also about how our nervous system is responding to another person. So some techniques for you to apply, and you can do this every day and every moment to stay present to your body. You can do this right now as I'm describing it, is slowing your breathing down. You may want to try square breathing, where you're inhaling to a count of 3, pausing for 3, exhaling to a count of 3, pausing for 3, and continue doing that. So that kind of nice slow breathing, that's going to really help stimulate your vagus nerve, slow your heart rate down, keep you nice and calm, steady, so you can stay present and out of flight, fawn reactivity, or freeze, that reactivity. Another thing you can do is just consciously drop your shoulders away from your ears. So release tension from your neck and shoulders. We are often really clenched up and hold a lot of tension there. And so just dropping those shoulders down and relaxing. I can see people doing that. So nice. And lastly, speaking more slowly. When we get excited, and I'm a very fast talker. I have, my ideas are zipping around. I talk a lot and I move really quickly. And so I have to be very present and slow my words down, and also watch my volume, because when I'm excited, my volume tends to go up, 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 up. And another person may experience this. My daughter often says, "Stop shouting at me." And I'm like, "I'm not shouting. I'm so excited." So it's just slowing down our rate. So when we use tools like this to regulate our nervous system, we are able to respond to what's happening. We're choosing our responses rather than just reacting habitually. And this leads to different outcomes in problem resolution. Less judgment, more listening, staying curious. Simple, but not always easy. When your colleagues, your friends, your family, your team, your clients feel disconnected from you or stuck in an unproductive pattern of communication, the way we communicate becomes the lever for us to change. So communicating intentionally helps others to respond and adapt to what we're saying. And I would invite you to, we see this in like amazing teams and high performing teams, whether that's in sports. We've got lots of examples of that in the Olympics right now. Excellent communication between teammates or between coaches and their teams. And I would invite you to set an intention today around how you might make a small shift in how you currently communicate. It could be as simple as, I will listen more than I speak in a meeting with somebody. Or it could be trying a mindfulness practice. One of my favorites is taking a bracelet like this one, putting it on this hand. And if I notice that I'm making assumptions, every time I do that, I switch it to the other hand. And it's this really helpful visual cue for me to be aware of like, ooh, I'm making a lot of assumptions today because I'm, keep having to switch it from one side to the other. This is just a really simple technique you can use whenever you're trying to create a habit change. And these shifts can help you stay in integrity, build trust with your clients and with your team, and gain clarity. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. As I said, I could talk all day, but we all want to get into the breakout rooms. So thanks so much for your attention. If anybody has any comments or questions, I'd love to hear from you.
Wow, that was awesome, Naomi.
Thanks, Sunny.